Hi guys, it's Lourdes at Native Plant Channel, and today I'm really excited to be visiting a brand new botanic garden. It's so wonderful because how many times in your lifetime do you get to be a part of a brand new botanic garden? So today we are at the Delaware Botanic Gardens at Pepper Creek, and I am with Brian Trader, who's going to be telling us about the gardens, the many native plants here. One of the reasons that I'm really interested in it is because it focuses on sustainability, on creating habitat for butterflies, pollinators, and birds. And these are some of the garden's goals. Brian, can you tell us a little bit more?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for visiting us today, and welcome to Delaware Botanic Gardens. I'm our Deputy Executive Director and Director of Horticulture. And it is amazing to be a part of something so new and so great, especially for the community here on the southern Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula. So we started breaking ground here in 2016, so we are pretty new. We opened to the public officially fall of last year, which was September 2019. And we have about 37 acres that we're trying to transition from an agricultural soybean field to a beautiful botanical garden with a mission centered around education, sustainability, and of course native plants. So here we are in one of Delaware Botanic Gardens' newest gardens. This is our Rhine Garden, and this happens to be the first garden that greets our guests as they enter our parking area. This past spring, in April, May, and June, we planted over 12,000 native perennials and cultivars of native perennials here in the Rhine Garden. The Rhine Garden is not only beautiful, but it is also functional. So these mass plantings of Baptisia, Echinacea, Phlox, Monarda, and then we used a soft rush or Juncus effusus. These mass plantings not only add beauty to the gardens, but they help filter the water that's coming from our parking area and removing any pollutants or contaminants from that water before it enters the environmental stream. So just beyond me here, we have our mass planting of Echinacea. We've used 5 different selections of Echinacea that give us colors ranging from yellow to white, purple, pink, and you'll even find some reds in there. So some of the cultivars we use are Magnus. We've also used White Swan, Cheyenne Spirit, and then Pixie Meadow Bright. So those are the cultivars of Echinacea that we've used. We're really excited for this, not only because of its beauty, but of course the pollinators, the butterflies, the bees. They love these plants for their nectar. And then we will leave the seed heads on here, which will of course will attract all kinds of birds, especially goldfinches. So in this part of the Rhine Garden, we have a mass planting of Baptisia, which is of course false indigo, and we have about 7 different varieties of Baptisia planted here. In southern Delaware, they bloom for us in May, but also in June. And as they emerge, they have beautiful architectural stems. The colors we have planted here in this part of the Rhine are vary from yellow to white, yellow, and we even have a red cultivar called Cherries Jubilee. After they bloom, they have beautiful seed set with dark black seed pods. So welcome to our Piet Oudolf Meadow Garden. This is a 2-acre meadow that we've constructed here at Delaware Botanic Gardens. Our meadow is comprised of over 70,000 plants. 85% of those plants are native to the Mid-Atlantic or North America. We have a great combination of flowering perennials, but also beautiful grasses. There are no shrubs, however, in our meadow garden. The meadow blooms throughout the seasons. So in June, typically is when we have our peak bloom here in the meadow. But our designer, Piet Oudolf, who's world famous, has truly designed this garden to be beautiful throughout the seasons. So there's something always blooming here in the meadow, which we're very thankful for. And my favorite time in the meadow is of course autumn, when our pink muley grass comes into full bloom. So just behind me here is a pollinator favorite. This is mountain mint, and it has just started blooming within the last couple weeks. It actually has a very long bloom time, usually 6 weeks or more, and you'll even get a second flush of bloom sometimes in the autumn. But it's a great pollinator plant for butterflies, wasps, bees, flies. You'll see so many different pollinators that love this mountain mint, and it almost looks like the mountain mint is moving. There's so many pollinators moving on top of the flowers.
Yes, and I agree with that. In my own garden, this is one of the top pollinator plants. So if you're interested in attracting pollinators to your garden, this is definitely one to try.
So here we are in front of one of our tallest plants in the meadow. This is Liatris, or prairie blazing star. This reaches 6 foot plus very easily, and throughout the day you'll find all kinds of pollinators that are attracted to this Liatris. You'll have butterflies, bees, skippers, sometimes you'll see wasps, and it blooms for about 3 to 4 weeks, and it is a really great perennial for the garden if you have the room. So this is another favorite here in the Piet Oudolf meadow. This is licorice plant. This is a cultivar called Black Adder, and when you talk about pollinators, this is another powerhouse. It's hard to walk by this plant throughout the day without seeing all different kinds of butterflies, other pollinators such as bees, skippers, and a lot of variety of pollinators as well. This has a pretty long period of flowering. A lot of times we'll deadhead this, and it will also flower in the fall again for us. And also the stem has a great scent to it. So it's a great native plant for your garden.
So Brian, I noticed the beautiful textural contrast here in this area. Can you tell us about what's going on here?
Sure. So one of the great attributes of many of Piet's gardens is the combination of plant communities that he selects for. And sometimes he selects plants that naturally occur together, but other times he puts plants that are from far apart together. And so in this case we have a combination of many different natives planted here together. We have the blue star, which is this lighter green, almost yellow Amsonia. Just beyond it we have the blue-green, and then the purple hues, tipped with purple hues of blue stem, and this is a cultivar called Twilight Zone. And then just beyond that you'll see the Eryngium, the rattlesnake master, that's poking up ahead with beautiful white flowers, and there's all kinds of pollinators that are visiting that right now. So not only do you have this great contrast of texture, but there's also quite a bit of movement, and so there's a little bit of a breeze here today. Maybe you can see that, and that's another thing that Piet has designed for, is just the movement of these plants when they're assembled in these communities. So here we are on the periphery of our meadow garden, and this is kind of in between our woodland gardens, which is 12 acres of the property, and our meadow garden, which is 2 acres. And we call this the woodland edge garden. In the woodland edge we have almost all natives planted, central to our mission again. This really tall yellow pinnately compound leaf plant is called senna, and it has these beautiful yellow flowers that attract mostly bees, but other pollinators. And then they'll have these little bean pod seeds that will emerge shortly after it flowers. Just beyond that we have our native hibiscus. Then we have our yellow coreopsis just starting to bloom. And even below here we have spotted bee balm, or Monarda punctata. So just a whole swath of natives. A grass that I like to promote and to point out is the switchgrass. This is a very tall variety of switchgrass, reaching about 7 to 8 foot. And while it's not in flower now, this provides very important habitat for our ecosystem. And specifically, the native Carolina mantis loves to lay its egg sacs on this grass because it has such sturdy stalks. Alright, so this is one of my personal favorites in the garden. Here we are at the woodland edge still, and this is a beautiful Silphium. It's also called cup plant. It has great yellow flowers, and actually we have had to stake this. It is a robust plant, so it may need a little extra support. This one has beautiful leaves that are pubescent, very fuzzy, And unique about this is it will capture some water down at the base where the leaf meets the stem, and that will provide water for birds to drink from. Another plant that's really popular in this part of the garden is our phlox, and we have a beautiful purple phlox here, and of course that's a great plant for pollinators, and it's a favorite for many gardeners. It comes in all different colors. This is one that's purple and it's called Laura. And then just beyond the phlox we have Manfreda or bee balm. And then we have some native shrubs in here too, with calycanthus or sweet shrub. And of course the sweet shrub flowers in spring. And we'll have really nice, this one has great burgundy foliage. It's called burgundy spice.
All right, Brian, so take us into the woodland.
So we're walking into our woodland gardens now, where we have 12 acres of woodlands and trails. A lot of native plants in the woodlands, and of course you can probably imagine the temperature does drop as you walk from the full sun of the meadow, which is a great opportunity in the summer to cool off.
And we need it on this past week that with the heat wave we've been having here in the Northeast.
Absolutely, especially in the 90-degree temperatures we've had. So as we walk into the woodlands, if you go to your left, you'll see our folly garden. The folly garden happens to be the remnants of the original farmhouse that used to be here on the property. And we've created this almost folly where we've excavated part of the foundation of that house, and we've recreated the fence like you're going to visit the house. So it is a folly in that it's not the true original foundation, but you have to use your imagination. So on both sides of the path, which of course the path is very natural, it's lined with stumps from the woodlands of trees that have fallen, and of course our pathway itself is pine bark mulch that's been compacted down for accessibility. But on both sides of the pathway you'll see that we've accented the woodlands with native plants. We have native carex or sedges. We have lots of species of native ferns. This is a native blue lobelia, and then of course also native iris. So here we are in our woodland gardens, and we're at a very special place in the woodland gardens. This is called our knoll garden, and we're 17 feet above sea level, which is quite unique for southern Delaware. In the woodlands here, and especially at the knoll garden, we've planted over 700 different ferns. All of the ferns are native, and we've included ferns like this maidenhair fern to accent the pathways here. Just beyond the maidenhair fern, you'll see that we have a lot of American holly, and those American holly are natural to the woodlands. We haven't planted those. We have native azaleas in here as well. And all these plants, of course, attract different insects and different pollinators and different wildlife because of the berries and the ecological or ecosystem services they provide. So one of the things we're trying to do here as part of our mission is to help educate our guests and to help our guests learn about the importance of native plants. And so we do have some unusual natives here in the garden, and we're still in the woodland gardens, and this is a false agave, and it's depending on the authority they call it agave virginica or maybe Manfreda virginica, and it has these very small flowers but still very beautiful. So one of the things that greeted me first thing this morning was a box turtle on one of our trails, and we see many box turtles here throughout the week, and they truly are a sign or an indicator species of a healthy habitat. And so one of the things that we're doing to try to encourage the healthiness of our ecosystem here and the health of the gardens is we've constructed these, we call them birds' nests, and they are comprised of branches and material that have fallen naturally from our woodlands, and they fall in our path, and we clear them from our path. And so they serve a couple different purposes. One, it's a repository for material that's fallen from the woodlands. Secondly, they're architecturally beautiful, we think, and our guests share with us. But most importantly, these nests provide really important habitat. So In the nooks and the crannies within the branches, that's where spiders, crickets, and other insects live. And of course, birds, toads, turtles feed on those insects, and so you have this beautiful habitat in and of itself. So we're still in the woodland gardens, and throughout the woodlands we have several vernal pools. So these pools will have fresh water in them seasonally. So after we have a rain, water will collect here. And throughout most of the year we have water in this one. It's our largest vernal pool, unless we've had a drought. And these vernal pools are very important ecologically because they provide fresh water here along the woodlands for all types of wildlife, including birds, reptiles, salamanders, and freshwater is really important because along our woodlands we have a tidal creek which has salt water in it. So to have a source for fresh water here within the gardens is very important. Along the perimeter of the vernal pool we have several native plants. We have naturally occurring red maple, and then within the pool we have bulrush, we have some native iris, and then some even native sweet bay magnolia. So here we are at the Point, which is an area of our woodland gardens, and it's the closest that we invite our guests to get to Pepper Creek, which is a tidal estuary. It is brackish water. It flows into the Indian River, which then flows into the Atlantic Ocean. It's great to have this habitat featured here in our gardens because our guests are able to get up close and personal with blue crab, with all kinds of seabirds like ducks, waterfowl, heron, and on occasion you'll even see some river otters swimming through here. Along the creek bank we have several native species that are naturally occurring. We have loblolly pine here, we have more American holly, and then of course we have Nyssa sylvatica, which is black gum. So a lot of different trees that are along the shoreline, but we also have very important grasses that are on the shoreline as well that help stabilize the shoreline, including several different species of spartina. So this is high bush blueberry, and it's naturally occurring here on the site. This was not planted. And you can see the high bush blueberries, you know, they are taller. They get over 6-7 foot tall. And this one did flower this year, and it did have berries on it. You'll have to trust me. But just a few weeks ago, we had the cedar waxwings come through and feed off all the berries. And that was educational for me because I thought cedar waxwings only came around our region in the winter. But no, we saw them here, and I think it's a testament that these native shrubs like high bush blueberry provide really important food resources for the ecosystem. So this is an important tree or large shrub in our woodland gardens, and this is called devil's walking stick or Aralia spinosa. And the reason it's called devil's walking stick is because along the trunk and the main stem of this large shrub, small tree, are these very prominent spines, and so it'd be really hard to grab onto that unless you were the devil. This tree is primarily in the understory. And it also serves another purpose. The deer love this tree because they will rub their antlers along the branch of the tree, and they will mark the tree, as you can see with some of these that have been destroyed over here. So we're along the woodland edge here, and this is one of my favorite native shrubs. This is beautyberry, Calocarpa americana, and beautyberry is just now coming into bloom, and it has these pink clusters of flowers right at the base of the leaves. And everywhere you see one of these pink flowers, that will turn into a green berry, and then that green berry will turn bright purple in the autumn through the winter. So just along the path here on the woodland edge we have a native hibiscus, and this is a cultivar that is a dwarf form. This is Hibiscus machutos, and beautiful rose-colored flower with a bright red center. Pollinators love it. You can see the bees are fighting over the flowers now. But you'll also see there's some insect damage on the leaves, and so we also have some problems with Japanese beetle here in the gardens on this plant sometimes. So we're right outside our welcome center, and one of our first gardens that visit our guests as they come to Delaware Botanic Gardens. And all of our gardens here have been planted and maintained almost exclusively by volunteers. We have over 200 volunteers that help us here, and we only have 3 staff. So without our volunteers, much of what you see in the gardens just simply would not be possible. This garden, however, was planted by a very special group of volunteers, a troop of Girl Scouts. So they've come the last 2 years and helped plant this area, help weed this area, and maintain this area. And throughout this garden, we have all native plants. We have several different species of sedge. We have a creeping phlox. We have some redbud trees. And then we have this unique native perennial, which is called Lysimachia. And this particular form has bright red, almost purple new growth. And of course, after it leaves out a little bit, it has these beautiful, dainty yellow flowers. So here we are in our meadow garden, and we have several species of milkweed planted in the meadow garden. This happens to be Asclepias tuberosa, and this is a really important plant for a number of different pollinators. And you'll see not only does it attract pollinators, but it attracts other insects as well. And so you'll find the milkweed bug here mating on the plant and breeding on the plant. You'll even find some caterpillars that are munching on the milkweed. And we're really conscientious about the environment here. It's part of our mission. It's also part of our vision to be a sustainable garden. So we apply very few, almost no pesticides in the garden. The meadow garden is exclusively hand weeded, and we are not able to apply fungicides and insecticides because we really want to increase the biodiversity of the site and to implore basic principles to take care of these diseases and insects that are not harmful.
All right, guys, so I hope you've enjoyed the tour of the Delaware Botanic Gardens. We've certainly learned a lot about many new native plants, and I want to thank you, Brian, for taking us around today, for all your knowledge. I want to thank you for everything that you've shared with us today.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you to the viewers of the Native Plant Channel for visiting the Delaware Botanic Gardens. We hope that you'll come back, and if you'd like to learn more or to be involved, we invite all the viewers to visit our website. It's delawaregardens.org, and there's lots of opportunities to volunteer or to become a member, or even if you'd like to find out more information about visiting in person. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Have a great day.